Coming up on Arirang News, South Koreans mourn the late mayor of Seoul, Park Won-soon, who apparently took his own life on Thursday. Plans are in the works for an official funeral for him and a way for ordinary citizens to pay their respects. The South Korean government announces yet another set of measures to cool down the country's soaring home prices. To stop speculation, taxes will go up on those who have multiple homes. And it's the last weekend of a nationwide retail campaign in South Korea to revive the economy. Big discounts on all kinds of goods as part of the Donggang sale through this Sunday. It's 5 p.m. here in Seoul. Thank you for tuning in to Arirang News. I'm Devin Whiting. Seoul Mayor Park Won-soon, seen by many as a likely candidate for president, was found dead on a mountain in the capital shortly after midnight Korea time in an apparent suicide. He'd been reported missing by his daughter earlier on Thursday. Our Kim Do-yeon is at the hospital where they're holding a wake for the late mayor. Do-yeon, people in Korea are in shock. It must be a very somber atmosphere where you are right now.
Yes, Devin, I'm at Seoul National University Hospital where the wake for the mayor is being held. It's been bustling with a lot of media, as you'd expect, waiting for any updates on funeral proceedings. At noon today, the funeral home started taking visitors and is now open to the public. We have seen many high-ranking public officials come for a visit, including President Moon Jae-in's top aides and the U.S. ambassador. However, the visitors are generally keeping their words to themselves at the moment, while the media is trying to get a few words. In addition, a handwritten message left by the mayor has been released to the public. Let's hear what it said.
I'm sorry to everyone. I thank all those who have been with me throughout my life. My family, I'm sorry that I've only given pain to you. Goodbye, everyone.
Okay, Do-yeon, so tell us briefly how all of this happened and about the funeral arrangements and how the city will deal with the vacancy in its highest post.
Devin, it was reported that around 5 p.m. yesterday, Korea time, the late mayor's daughter called the police saying that he was missing, and the search began immediately. His body was found on Mount Bugaksan and was transported here afterwards. The city said earlier that the body will be moved on July 13th and that the funeral will be a special mayoral ceremony in the 5-day traditional Korean system. The city will set up a special memorial at City Hall for the public to pay their respects starting tomorrow. In addition, the city said it now has an interim mayor, Park's deputy Seo Jung-hyuk. He came out and said that he will make sure that the situation does not put people's safety in any danger. Lastly, the public is also paying attention to the fact that the police received a complaint regarding alleged sexual harassment leveled against the mayor on Wednesday by his former secretary, which the public believes could be a motivation behind the apparent suicide. Back to you, Devin.
All right, thank you, Do-yeon. We'll check back in with you later to see what the updates are. Now, North Korea has once again stressed that it has no plans to hold a summit with the U.S. this year, though the U.S. Secretary of State has said he is very hopeful about continuing talks with the regime. Our Hong Yu reports.
Kim Yo-jong, the sister of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, says a summit between the leaders of North Korea and the U.S. is necessary for Washington, but useless for Pyongyang. That was one of the 3 reasons Kim Yo-jong laid out in her statement Friday as to why she personally thinks there will not be another North Korea-U.S. summit within this year. She also said the special relationship between the 2 leaders, Kim Jong-un and Donald Trump, could be damaged if a summit happens. And she said the final reason why another summit is unlikely anytime soon was that former U.S. National Security Advisor John Bolton had predicted a summit would happen. She also described Bolton as trash. The statement came just a few hours after U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said the U.S. is very hopeful that they can continue denuclearization talks with the North. Pompeo hinted that there could be a senior-level meeting between Washington and Pyongyang. He said it could be useful, but that he does not want to talk about the details yet. Despite dismissing the possibility of another summit, Kim Yo-jong left the door open for denuclearization. But she said the U.S. must take major steps before Pyongyang abandons its nukes. Kim said those major steps are not sanctions relief, but a change in the framework of negotiations between North Korea and the U.S. Kim Yo-jong added that the regime's military movements will all depend on how the U.S. behaves. To why there is no military tension now between Pyongyang and Washington, she said it is due to the friendship built between Kim Jong-un and President Trump. 홍유, Arirang News.
The latest on the pandemic, South Korea reported 45 new cases of COVID-19 on Friday. 22 were transmitted locally and 23 were imported. There were 14 in Gyeonggi-do province, 8 in Seoul, and 7 in the central city of Daejeon. Total cases now 13,338. There was one additional death, raising the death toll to 288. Meanwhile, the United States on Thursday posted a new record daily increase of more than 65,000 cases. The world's hardest hit country now has a total of more than 3.1 million. The Seoul Metropolitan Government has released a video manual for paramedics responding to COVID-19 patients. The video contains instructions for each stage of their response, including the transfer of patients to the hospital, disinfection, and how to isolate patients. It also gives detailed information on how to put on protective suits and dispose of medical waste. The English version of the video is up on the city's official English website. It's also being distributed overseas by the Foreign Ministry. The South Korean government has announced yet another set of measures to stop speculation on real estate and bring down the country's soaring home prices. The measures include higher taxes on people who own multiple homes and a smaller burden on those who buy houses to actually live in. Our Kim Da-mi explains.
To tame the country's skyrocketing housing market, the South Korean government has jacked up the real estate tax for people owning more than one home. Included in the latest anti-speculation measures unveiled on Friday, the ownership tax for multiple homeowners will now double to 6% from the previous 3.2%.
Stabilizing housing for ordinary people is a top priority. The government has pledged to protect those who purchase homes for actually living in, root out speculative investment, and come up with customized appropriate measures.
In addition, it's going to be a lot more difficult for speculators to make profits through home purchases. Starting next June, the capital gains tax will increase to 70% for those who sell their house within a year of purchase and 60% for sales within 2 years of purchase. Tax benefits such as a property tax reduction for home rental businesses will now also be dramatically reduced. The latest measures also look to widen benefits for first-time buyers. There'll be no acquisition tax when buying a house worth less than $125,000. The government will also create a task force with related ministries to increase the number of houses available for those who really need homes. The bill to revise real estate taxes will be submitted to the National Assembly early next week. Friday's measures came just a month after the administration's 21st set of regulations failed to put the brakes on the soaring local housing market. Kim Da-mi, Arirang News.
Time now for an in-depth look at the market news this afternoon, and for that I'm joined on the line by Mr. Daniel Yu, Global Strategist at Yuanta Securities. Mr. Yu, thank you for making time on this Friday.
Good afternoon.
Well, stocks on Wall Street were down for the most part, with the exception of the Nasdaq on Thursday, which continues to reach new highs. What's the story in the global markets?
Yes, as you said, U.S. market was kind of mixed. Continuation of rising trend for Nasdaq happened. The Nasdaq was up about 0.63%. However, though S&P 500 was down 0.56, and the Dow Jones was down 1.39. And also small caps were down as well by 1.76%. Clearly, investors are focusing on the prospect of the economic recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic. And if you look at the record-breaking cases and deaths in several of the U.S. states, it's causing the concern, and that is resulting into the traditional stocks prices were coming down, particularly S&P 500 stocks. However, though, because of this pandemic, we are seeing continuation of people staying at home, the COVID-19 induced restriction resulting into more usage of the the technologies, and that results into additional sales number for some of these major large cap company in NASDAQ. So clearly that is resulting into two-way street of focusing on the NASDAQ-based companies rather than the S&P-based companies. This kind of trend seems to be happening all over the world. Just for example, looking at Chinese market, it's been very, very strong, but the strength is coming from the Shenzhen index rather than Shanghai index, which is focusing on much more of the growth stocks and the tech-related stocks. And right now we are under the fourth industrial revolution phase where these growth stocks, particularly in the industries related to the IoTs and online related, are all resulting into very strong sales growth rate. So clearly there is a differences between where the interest lies and where people are not really interested at this point in time.
Well, Korean stocks are lower today too, seeming to take their cue from Wall Street. What's happening in the domestic market?
Right. Korean market is also in the same trend in such that if you look at the Kosdaq versus Kospi, Kospi is down another 0.8%, while the Kosdaq is up down basically 0.01%, so basically flat. So clearly there's a differences that's happening, and it seems to be happening in the last few days where the Kosdaq is much stronger. Clearly this is the same case because the COVID-19 impact. If you look at the Korea, we have seen the daily COVID-19 cases kind of jumping to as high as over 60 cases towards the beginning of this week. Now has declined to about 45 cases, but nevertheless still quite sizable, and quite half of that number is coming from the overseas. So clearly we're still concerned about the COVID-19 impact to the economy. And as long as the economy remains to be weak due to the COVID-19 globally, the export numbers remaining weak would be some burdensome for the market performances. However, though, in terms of the valuation, it looks continue to be cheap. We are seeing Samsung Electronics and chip makers saying the numbers are coming in much better than expected. So once again, for Korean market also, there is a big difference between tech-related versus non-tech-related.
Now, the Korean currency has gained back some strength recently against the dollar, hovering now around the 1,200 won mark. Today, that went up a little bit, though. But what do you see happening with the exchange rate?
Right. If you look at the Korea's exchange rate, when it hit the highest level, it went up to as high as about 1245 range, which is quite high relative to the current account surpluses that we're seeing in Korea and the low debt ratios versus the government debt ratios as a percentage of GDP. The reason for the weakness was because the COVID-19 incident, when it started, people were quite worried at the debt ratios for the consumers being high. A lot of people were concerned about the currency depreciating along with the line of renminbi, the Chinese renminbi depreciation. However, though, with the tackling the COVID-19 much better than most of the other economies in the world, Korea as well as Chinese currencies were kind of appreciating, and particularly for Korean won, it has appreciated much stronger and faster than other countries. So we saw the Korean won appreciated to as low as 1190 territories, but today it's up about 7.51 to 1202.5. Once again, I think that uncertainty remains for Korea in regards to domestic consumption because of the high debt ratio of consumers. Also, the uncertainty remains for the export numbers, where the trade surpluses declined by close to half. And clearly the trend is not necessarily positive. However, though, on a relative basis, Korea seems to be doing okay compared to the global economic growth rate going down by a significant amount, whereas Korea is going down by slight amount. So therefore, we think that the Korean won should be remaining where it is, which is about 1,200 range. It might have a variance of a 1 to 2% to the upward trend or to the downward trend. So we would expect the range bound around average of 1,200.
Got it. All right, Mr. Yu, thanks so much for sharing your insights today. Have a great weekend.
You too. Thank you very much.
South Korea has been holding a nationwide retail event called the Donggang sale to boost consumption and help revive the economy. Donggang meaning in Korean, go together. This weekend is the last chance to get big discounts on food, fashion, and more. At the COEX Convention Center in Seoul, hundreds of booths are showcasing a wide range of products. Until Sunday, retailers will be offering discounts of up to 70% on a range of cosmetics, food, and healthcare products. People can also watch live on YouTube to see special events like K-pop concerts. South Korea's Samsung Electronics has once again showed its consumer power in Asia. A survey conducted by marketing firms Campaign Asia Pacific and Nielsen shows that consumers in 14 markets across the region favored Samsung as the top brand. Samsung held on to the top spot for the 9th straight year, coming ahead of Apple, Panasonic, LG, and Nestle. By category, Samsung was #1 in mobile devices, TVs, and smart home technology, and was the most influential brand. The report said Samsung got the top spot thanks to its consistent investment in innovation, and that its foldable phone, the Galaxy Fold, has redefined the smartphone. That brings us to the end of this newscast. Thank you for watching. More live news coming your way at 7 p.m. Korea time.